All right, let's go. Let's do this. Welcome to the Creative Mind, guys. This time I wanted to throw on a track that is not copyrighted because we do plan to move this into a podcast form properly. We're finding ways to upgrade the space because it's been an incredible run so far. I believe this is maybe our 14th or 15th Creative Mind space that we've had thus far. And so it's kind of like a ritual now to start off the Fridays right, man. My name is Andrew Lyko. I will be your host today. I am also the founder of One Dope Kids. I have been a full time artist for the past 3.5 years. And man, let me tell you, it's been a fucking ride. Hell of a journey. And so the whole purpose about this space is to connect with like-minded individuals, other creators in the world that can share their story, their perspectives, the things that they've been through, and the way that they've gone to the place that they're at now. For the overall, just growth and learning, like the knowledge to be shared for others to digest and maybe tackle it on for themselves. I know there's a lot of hesitation when it comes to creating art or, just becoming creative in general and really following your passion because it can be a scary journey. And so we're here to inspire that, to motivate people to just say fuck it and just go for it. So that's what this space is really about. I believe that creatives are the backbone, the foundation of growth in general for the world. I mean, look at the innovation that comes out of creativity, like with everything with tech, just literally everything, bro. So I believe creatives are superhuman. So that's why I want to connect with them as much as possible. And that's what ODK is here for, is to be a safe place that we nurture that kind of talent and we inspire and motivate that mindset to keep going because we understand how difficult it can be sometimes. And so that being said, today we are in talks with a very incredible artist by the name of Ben Harley. By looking at his work, I would say he's a very intuitive painter, abstract, incredible works. And today we're going to learn about a little bit about his history, his perspective, his mindset, and overall just what he has going on, with his art, And so without further ado, Ben, do you want to come up here, bro? Just quickly, just say what's up to the people before we get right into it.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is my first time in spaces in quite a while, so bear with me if I start talking really fast or go on a long tangent. Or I have small children that jump in and start screaming. Either one.
It's all good, man. Like I've said before in other spaces, Stoic can definitely, let you know about this. Is that it's a very organic conversation. For the most part, I usually don't have much planned. You know what I mean? And I just like to talk one on one with another creative, kind of like open up the conversation to just take us into a place that maybe we can have some discovery. And but generally, it's just about having this talk about your creative process, kind of like your story. And I shifted in a way where I try to get as much out of you as possible without you even knowing. So, like I said, it's very, very chill, organic. And yeah, man, I guess we'll just start off with like, actually, no, I'm going to switch it up this time because I thought it was very interesting when you tweeted the other day that you've been living in the woods for quite some time. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Actually, let's start there.
Okay, so I'll try to cut. Like I said, I'll try to cut a little short. So I lived in the city most of my life. I grew up and went to school in the in suburbs, then into the big city. I live in Alabama, so it's a smaller big city. But so I lived in the city a lot of my life, and sometime around 2008, 2009, I was getting this. I don't know. I had this really strong urge to reconnect with nature and these sort of things. And I was a graphic designer. I was also selling at galleries, selling paintings at galleries, single, sort of, living in an apartment, those kind of things. And so I just started looking for land and had this whole dream. I started, researching, doing books on permaculture and how to live, sort of like close to nature, how to plant things that would continue to produce, plant nut trees, fruit trees, all that kind of stuff. And got this, really intense sort of like desire to do that. And that blossomed So slowly, I bought some land. I finally found a couple of years of searching, found 30 acres of land that suited my needs. You had to drive through a cow pasture and two gates to get there, so it was very hidden, very isolated, that kind of stuff. Um, and it was like a long journey to get the thing built because I still had a full time job, all these kind of things. But anyway, ended up getting it really close to finished. Having to quit a really amazing job as a painting and drawing instructor at the Alabama School of Fine Arts, where I actually went to high school, in order to finish that house and move out into the woods with my girlfriend at the time. And I delivered a couple of children out there. Now I have two beautiful sons. And we lived without power for a couple of years, which was very intense. Then I put in solar, which was very helpful. And anyway, so it was like a really amazing sort of spiritual journey, but also a very isolating experience because I had initially thought that I had a lot of friends that only lived about an hour away, and we were going to have people camping out, people coming up to visit, kind of doing the whole experience. Turned out an hour was too far for most of my friends and acquaintances to come out, so we were out in the woods, kind of by ourselves for about 7 years. Anyway, so yeah, dramatic rift between the family happened because that's crazy what I was doing, and we're sort of healing that now. But and now I've actually moved back to the city the last month, so everything's kind of crazy and up in the air currently in my life situation. I'm working as an art installer now with a good friend of mine who's got an art installation business, and trying to homeschool my children and just juggling lots of stuff at once right now.
Dude, that sounds like a incredible but also complicated ride. Like just the fact that you went out into the woods, man, and have been there for like 7 years of isolation. Like I I know what that feels like to some extent because I myself I came from a city boy background, and not a lot of people know this, but I actually went to private school in Arkansas for 4 years, right? And so that
Okay.
whole shift of like living in LA to all of a sudden living to like this small town of like
Yeah.
population 10K people, like the law enforcement was like a sheriff, you know what I mean? It was such a complete switch. I felt like I was in total isolation, and so I know kind of what that feels like. So like what did that do to you, to like your mindset? Let's keep it on the creative sense. Like were you creating at that time through this transition from going city into this nature in the woods type of lifestyle,
Actually,
or yeah?
it was tough. It was actually a time of I stopped doing painting and drawing as much. I was busy, so I built my house from the ground up, from scratch. So I did all this research, and so I was creating like this giant sculpture that I was living inside, basically. Because I've been a builder, sculptor, painter for most of my life. Some of my first toys were nails and hammers and 2x4s that my mom would bring home from her job when I was about 5 or 6. So I used to do that. But so I actually stopped painting because I didn't have space. I did large scale abstract oil painting for years. Had to own studio space, this kind of things. But that's lots of paint thinner, lots of solvents. And when I built my house, because I was doing it by myself, it had to be relatively small. So it was a one room, sort of like it was a 20 by 20 with a second floor. And I didn't have space for painting. Didn't want solvents in the house with the kids. So I sort of stopped a lot of that stuff. And digital art actually got me back into creating because um, during this time, so it was like this interesting thing where I took a big break from painting and drawing in the physical sense. And I used to be a graphic designer, so I kept the worlds of art and graphic design very separate. So I had this view that anything done with the computer that's just to make money, whatever. It's not a creative outlet for me. I do that in the studio after hours. Um, but I saw some work by who was it? Well, I listened to a podcast and heard a famous artist talking about this painting he did on digital, and I had no idea that digital painting had come so far, tablets and styluses, because I had just stayed away from all that, and I was out in the woods for about 3 years at this time, so I was kind of away from stuff. But digital painting actually got me back into creating, and coming into Twitter and crypto Twitter and having my feed, just like the amount of art that I was seeing created on a daily basis was an amazing thing, and then connecting with people. So it's this weird thing where I went off in this isolation in the physical realm, and then got this huge influx of connection through crypto Twitter and NFTs and this kind of thing. So that was a big change in my creative, outlet.
You see, this is why it's so important to have things like this, right? And be able to just have somewhere to showcase, because you never know when it's going to inspire the next person to be like, yo, actually, I see this differently because of how he or she did it. Like, just like you, I used to think digital stuff was just like for like animation. I really didn't see it as, oh, that's like painting, because I come from traditional senses. Well, like all hands-on graffiti, painting and stuff, just being
Yeah.
so there in the moment. Guarantee so probably feels the same. And so going to digital, I was like, I was very hesitant. Even like my sis had an iPad like years back, when it first came out, and I just didn't have that urge to like get one, because I was like, nah, I'm an artist. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Right.
know, but it's so crazy. And then seeing everything evolve in the past couple of, like, I'd say 2, maybe 3 years, I was like, dude, what the things that people are doing on a tablet is absolutely insane, and even people like you, bro, abstract artists, like, to me, ironically, I would say abstract art is much more difficult to do digitally, as opposed to like creating like a character or maybe some type of scene, because there really isn't that much structure, but you're very limited to your movements and the way that you use your tools on a digital tablet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the when I was working in physical terms, the materials themselves become such a huge part of the way things that happen, sort of gravity, texture, all these things that happen are a huge part of it. But it is much more difficult to create abstract digitally, I think.
Exactly, man. So like when I see artists like you, like designs, Sleeper kind of doing this type of abstract work, I'm just, honestly, I'm in awe, because I wouldn't even know like where to start, what kind of tool, what kind of brush do I use, because there's so many, like, all right, let's take this back a little bit, because you can tell I get super hella passionate, man. So when I see abstract art, I right away think of how to digest it, or like how to, take it apart, right? And then with having so many tools, like on an iPad, for instance, having thousands and thousands of different type of brushes and pressures, and you know what I mean, like the opacity, like all these things, I'm just like, dude, it's so many infinite options, which is great, but it's
Mhm.
also like, where the fuck do I even start? What do I use, right?
Yeah.
So like, how did you transition your voice and like your artistic capability from doing physical stuff into digital? Like, how was that transition for you?
It was actually pretty seamless. It was very intuitive. So I'd worked for years in Adobe Illustrator as a graphic designer. So all the tools were very, like, they're placed pretty similarly on Procreate, which I started using. And having the stylus with pressure and tilt sensitivity, these kind of things. Like, I basically just chose brushes that I was familiar with. So I'd choose a pencil tool or a pencil on canvas, or sort of natural oil paint brushes that would smear, these kind of things. So I just started out playing to see if I could use the same sort of techniques I used while painting. And when I painted, I used a lot of knife work. I like large scale, homemade palette knives and spatulas and squeegees and stuff. But I started using a lot of the brushes that were more traditional, and I played around with some of the more digital effects like glow and a lot of the things that, and I found that those are really interesting and really easy to make, special effects. But they kind of, like, I realized in some hours, this looks kind of cheap and too easy to do. I really preferred the tools that I was more familiar with, and so like it became very intuitive. And actually, the speed with which I could create a painting was is crazy to me now, because working with the paintings I was making when I actually moved were about 8 foot by 8 foot oil paintings. So there's the whole process of stretching, building canvas frames and stretching canvases, and letting oil paint dry, and the space it takes. And so it's like when I could do these things and just go, and picking colors was as easy as like hitting a color wheel, and choosing a new brush. You didn't have to wash anything out. You just grabbed something. So the process for me of digital painting became like the flow state that I always got in when I was doing physical work became even more intense. It was this weird thing. Like, so I go into like a trance almost when I paint on digital. My eyes go out of focus, and I have muscle memory from many years of painting and drawing and things. But I just start creating on the canvas and choosing things intuitively, and just allow the sort of like process to bring out the images. Like, so most of my paintings, unless I'm doing a particular project or some sort of a commission, I don't start with sketches. I don't start with sort of an idea that I'm going to try to capture. I just try to calm my mind, try to meditate or briefly, a little bit of breath work perhaps, and just kind of get into a calm state, an open state. And then I start painting and just let it come. And eventually images start showing up to me. And then I start playing off the images that are there and pushing and pulling and getting the compositions to form correctly for, for what I feel. And it becomes this sort of like translation or channeling of the energy of the exact moment that I'm painting. It's like, so I create this work very rapidly, and it's just like this, um, it's really amazing. I've, it's so crazy how I used to think about digital art, or using a mouse and cutting out car ads and things like that. And now that I'm doing this, it's like it's a beautiful therapy. You get to release emotions, and memories come up, and so it's really been an amazing journey, and to have this outlet where I get to put up, art, or actually the algorithm wants you to put up art every single day, but I get to release things and just, talk back and forth with people, on a, very, very rapid basis, compared to having to build up a show, get the schedule, and then get, a month, for, one show a year, whatever it is, the gallery, and that kind of thing. So it's been a really beautiful thing for me to find digital art, actually.
Dude, I absolutely love how passionate you are when you speak about all of this, and your conviction on yourself, saying things like amazing, right? When you're talking about yourself and your art, like that's exactly the mentality that it takes to continue pushing your work even further. Not necessarily in the sense for like the world, but like just for you, man. Like the way you feel about yourself and your work, like that's what's really gonna make you grow, because you're gonna continue to push through obstacles. And at the end of the day, man, we're fucking human, right? Like we're built by just having to face so many different obstacles every single day, right? So the fact that you get to create art and you're happy about it, you're passionate about it, you're like still excited after so many years, right? Like that's exactly what it's about. It's like finding that sweet spot that you just like, nah, I'm gonna fight for this. I'm not gonna let this go, because this is what fulfills me. This is what gives me life amongst all this other bullshit, right? And so it's beautiful, man. Like it hypes me up, because I'm just like, dude, there's other people like me. Like they love what they do. Like no matter what they're going through, they still find a way to create and just be happy, motivated about it, to the point that they want to talk about it to with somebody else. So let
Yeah.
me give you a round of applause, bro, because that's super.
um,
I tell you, this is a creative mind. Like this is what it's about. I love just getting into it like that, and just having you really open up about everything that you're doing, because I believe you're superhuman, bro. I believe every artist that is fighting for what they love is a fucking superhuman, and they're the ones that are really inspiring and impacting the world, and really just pushing the human race into a better place, man. I honestly believe that with every inch of my body.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And it's the artists in the NFT space are this like cutting edge, even further than a lot of other artists, because they're thinking ahead and they're thinking about the ways that the blockchain is going to affect, our whole society, our whole world, these kind of things. Um, so I think we're in this, like we're in this small bubble, or this small group, this tiny percentage of people, and it's kind of wild to think about, even, there's so many artists here that are having tough times and complaining about, sales or whatever, but just the fact that they found this space, like that their life led them here somehow, like that's amazing. Like, all the thing I think of, all the things that lead you to somewhere, and it's like, your point of view really affects, you can look at something and think, oh man, what a terrible experience. But I always try to think about, what is this teaching me? Why am I here? And throughout there's been a lot of dramatic stuff that happened to me in the last 7 years. And it's like, it's all perfect, man. Everything that happens to me is exactly what it was supposed to. I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. You know, you don't make a sale, your auction goes to zero. It's like that was supposed to happen. That's fine, whatever. Um, and I find opportunities pop out in all these things. I ground down to like all my money was gone. It was one of the things I'm like, you know what? This is setting me up for what I need next. This is, this me getting to like a low spot is a launching point for me to go high. It's all these things. It's just, so I have a very positive outlook, or I try to. Occasionally you'll get in a down spot, but I truly believe that I'm being led somewhere, and I'm just following my intuition.
Yes, sir. Keep following that intuition, man, because it's leading you the right fucking way. You know what this feels like to me? This point in time, I also believe what you said is completely right. It's like we're in this bubble, right, where something is really happening here, and for this, like, let's put aside the sales right now, and just focus on the moment. This feels like to me what 1980s New York was like, for the art scene, right? If you look at that period of time, that's when you got Jean-Michel Basquiat. That's when you got Keith Haring, Andy
Mm-hmm.
Warhol. That's where Fat Fight Freddy was at, Madonna. And so all these incredible, talented individuals were kind of like in this one space, right? And maybe they weren't all killing it at their time, but eventually everybody got their shining moment. And I feel like that's where we're at right now with Web3 and digital artists and the one-on-one space. It's like it's a small group because, you know, to be fair, we kind of all know about each other, even though we might not have spoken before. For instance, I've been knowing about you, right? But this is the first time that you and I get to speak one on one. But it's crazy to see that if you were to put an artwork next to another abstract artwork, I'd be able to be like, yeah, that's Ben Harley right there. The
Nice.
fact that I can even do that just by being in this space and seeing you around, bro, it's kind of crazy. And so that's what I think, man. I feel like right now we're in that time where something incredible is happening here, and as long as you just stay a part of it, something amazing is gonna happen, bro.
Yeah, it is like this crazy, like sort of think tank of creation, but it's like worldwide and it's cross borders. I've had so many amazing collaborations with people from all over the world, and before entering the space, I think I have actually collaborated physically with. I think there was only three. I've done three collaborations with other artists that were friends of mine, and since being in the space, it's like I don't know how many. It's multiplied like crazy, but it's all people that I've never met in person, and it's a really amazing thing to be able to meld and to learn from that process. The collaborative process is really intense. It can be intense, but it's really amazing.
100%. And for you, what would you say is probably one of the most difficult things that you had to go through, in order to like fulfill your journey of becoming a creative? Like what was some hesitations, maybe something that you went through that you can share with us?
Let's see. Well, I mean, there's always that like it's that leap of faith that getting out of the safety zone and not doing what everybody else is doing. It's easy. It used to be easy to get a 9 to 5 job. I don't know if it still is or not, but like that sort of lifestyle is expected, and everybody, your family and your friends are like, oh yes, he has a respectable job. This, yes, I see he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, getting this the gold star. But when you kind of drop that away and try to just pursue your goals. Even the way that I went out and had to live my life in the woods, this thing was no one was like backing me and giving me claps on the back for that. Um, but you just have to do it, And I've always, my mom was always very supportive of my creativity and my drawing and my painting and these kind of things. Um, but then always then I got a regular job doing graphic design, these kind of things. But when you just like have to cut ties with that stuff and kind of like follow your own path, it can be lonely. But you have to kind of trust it and say this is something's leading me here, something's deep in me and it's really wanting to go. And I could choose not to follow it, but how would I feel if I didn't follow this path,
Yeah, it's like that sense of regret, right? It's like, damn, I wonder how I would have gone if I would have actually done that instead of this. And it's a very difficult situation, man. Not just for creators, but I feel like for people in general, right? We wake up and right away. we started thinking about all the different problems that we need to solve, right? To kind of not just live, but like maybe just survive, bro. You know, and so I don't know. I feel like things are getting a little bit more difficult to be able to kind of like set yourself out of that, right? And I feel like the new generation is struggling even further trying to really find what it is that they actually love to do. I feel like people are trying less things, and it's sad to see, bro, because I'm over here like, fuck, I just want people to try all kinds of things because I know that's the only way that you actually find that one thing that you're passionate about. But until you do that, bro, it's kind of just like, you're just there, you know. And I hate seeing people that are just there because I'm just like, damn, dude, like you gotta understand, you're worth so much more. You can be doing so much more, and it's just a shitty situation, man. That's
Yeah.
why, like, that's what really fucking motivated me to really just bring Wando Kids to the picture, man. Because I could have just stayed as a fine artist myself and continued doing my own art, and that's it, bro. Maybe could have made a Discord for my collectors and called it a day, but something just told me like, nah, man, you need to do much more. Like your art should come second, bro, but like your overall movement to have other people kind of feel the same and get inspired to just go after it should be number one. And so that's why we're here, bro. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here. You know, I didn't really have to be in Web3 at all, bro, but I saw some dedicated motherfuckers that were just like, yo, I'm going for it. And I don't care what people are going to tell me. Like, I'm here to stay. And I absolutely love the fact that I entered the space and got to meet people like you, got to people like Sleeper, like even just other people that appreciate art at this level, you know, and that they're not artists themselves, but they love what we're doing, and that motivates me to keep going. And so like for you, man, like where do you think you're headed with all this, you know? Like you just said that you went back to the city now. Like what are your thoughts on like the next 1 or 2 years coming up?
Honestly, I'm like I'm in a very topsy turvy sort of moment in my life. So not really positive that I have a great outlook on that. Like I said, I've tended to be a very logical, technical sort of person growing up, making plans, making sketches. My sketchbook used to be more words than images, and I'm trying to flip that. And for the last several years, I have been, and I'm trying to rely more on my intuition and following the following the different a different part of my brain, sort of, if you want to call it that. Going from one side to the other. I've really enjoyed reconnecting with a few people. Like uh, I've already reconnected with the art scene to some degree. I'm installing art in museums and in people's houses right now, and this has been a pretty cool experience, even though it's only been a few weeks. Um, but like I said, I don't. I'm kind of at a loss on that question. I'll tell you. um, oh no, dead air.
Not sure if you're rugging a bit.
No, I just I ran out of words. It's a rare
Oh,
occasion.
okay, that's totally fine. I was just like no, but I wanted to know like not necessarily you, the action of just hanging art, but the interaction with the collector, right? Like you guys are helping place an art piece. Like talk about that moment. Like how does that happen? How do they decide where they want this piece? Do you give them some type of, opinion of kind of what you think the piece should be placed at, or any of that? Like how does that go?
Yeah, well, the last few shows we've hung in museums. Basically, me and the lead installer. It's up to us almost to where these pieces go. They want these 8 pieces by this artist in the show, and we have to decide, how to hang them. And so we've been given pretty good latitude to group things as far as narrative and visual sort of like correspondence, and to make things flow in a show. Um, and I've been building crates and doing all kinds of random stuff, framing artwork. So it's a fun thing because I'm a builder and I love to work with my hands, and uh, it's a great sort of task for me as well. Something it's another outlet. It's creative in some ways. It's not the same kind of creativity as creating your own art, but it was one of those things. Like I came back to the city because I was kind of like needing to. I needed some help with the children. I needed to find a new job, and within a week, I called up my friend and was like, "You still want, you still need some help?" And he was like, "Oh my God, uh, please! I don't have anybody that's good with woodworking. That's an artist." And he's just, it's just been great to reconnect with him because we've known each other since the '90s. We started showing at the same gallery around the same time, and so that's how I know him. And so it's been a really beautiful experience, even though it's only been, I think I've been there for 3 weeks now. Uh, so
That's amazing, man. And it sounds to me like you guys are curators in a sense, right? Because you get a lot of freedom to, like you said, choose where what artworks go where, and so you guys are, in a sense, completing the experience, right, by placing this artwork a certain way. So that's really
yeah,
cool,
yeah,
though, because I think that allows you to kind of see more artwork that can maybe influence your own work, right? Even though you might not think, but subconsciously, like you tend to gravitate towards a certain look and a style that you're like, hey, that's actually pretty cool, right? As opposed to other stuff. And so the fact that you're kind of like exposed to this is amazing because, like I said, you're getting a lot of these inputs of different styles of art, and it's just influencing you, right?
yeah. And it's been great. Just like I said, just reconnecting with the art world. I haven't been to a gallery show or a museum in a long time because I was just trying to survive and just trying to raise my children the best way I could and those kind of things. I was out in out kind of in the rural area, and uh, so I hadn't been to an art show. Now to getting to handle art and to see paintings up close and just like study them. It is beautiful. I've loved it, and I'm like, now I'm getting the itch to like, man, next move might be to find some sort of studio space and start slinging some paint again. I don't know.
That'd be awesome, bro. Let's talk about your experience and kind of like your knowledge about the fine art world. What are your takes on it? You said you have shown with a gallery before, right? Right now you're working with museums and stuff. So like, what's your intake about the fine art world in general? What's your take?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that I stopped showing years and years ago was I was very involved. I loved the gallery I was showing with. It was like a small nonprofit gallery, and like I started showing there when I was still in college, and they were just really. It was like a real family, kind of environment. And I met so many amazing artists. We would help each other move and all these kind of things. And uh, so I loved the space. And I loved the thing, but one of the things that happened is I realized that I could never afford my own paintings because of the gallery markup and all these kind of things. And so I was going to these shows, and it was sort of the wealthy people were buying the art, and I couldn't even afford my friend's art. I mean, we could trade, and we did, and that kind of thing. But it was this interesting thing where I was like, this is such a weird thing. Like all my, I'm making these things that are precious to me, and then I want to share with my friends. And then I can, I didn't even get to meet most of the collectors. Very few of my collectors that I ever meet. Um, so that's one of the really amazing things also about the crypto world is that the DMs and the talks, and you get to actually interact with your collectors way more than I ever did in my experience with the art world. But so it left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth just for that sort of like just that socioeconomic thing, whereas like all of the artists that were creating art were generally not very well off, and then all the people that were buying it, of course, were, and we were getting half the cut, and the gallery needed, I understand why the gallery needed the overhead and all those kind of things, very important, but so it was a weird kind of thing, and I just kind of like got less and less I got less and less sort of like excited about that. Um, so that was sort of one of the reasons that I kind of like tapered off from showing at galleries. And there was not a lot of galleries. I'm in the deep South, and there was a handful of galleries that were around, but I really only liked the gallery that I showed at. There wasn't a lot of other ones that I really liked the vibe of. So I didn't do a lot after. And then and then actually the gallery that I was showing at went under during like the 2008 big recession depression thing. So I was like, well, that kind of works out for me anyway. Um,
Yeah. And the reason I asked, man, is because I like to get like the second perspective on, what it's like, because it's definitely not easy to show in a gallery. Like you said, man, like 50% is actually pretty standard, which is
mhm.
kind of crazy, but like that's just the way it is, you know? And I feel like if you're not in like that top 10% within that world, it's very difficult to make a living out of it, because paintings just kind of sit. And I've just seen other artists, man, to kind of struggle with that route. And I feel like in today's age, a lot of creators are having different avenues to be able to make a living. You look at artists that are killing it with different things. Say, for instance, they're doing videos like on TikTok, and that blows up, and then like you get to be able to monetize that, right? Maybe you have some type of merch, and people are making a killing off of the merch, right? And not necessarily the art itself, but the art influences the merch, which
Mhm.
makes people want to get it. And so like nowadays, there's so many ways to kind of do it on your own, just because of the tools that are available to us. And so I aspire. I tell artists, like, especially young ones who are just like, what to do, how do I get there? I'm like, bro, like, focus on the art, right? And if you truly want to be the best, I love that. Like, stay with that passion, but like also kind of create yourself this benchmark of a foundation that can be a business in general, a brand, right? Because there's so many ways that you can monetize yourself and your art that doesn't necessarily just come from selling an artwork for like $20,000.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so
And
yeah.
unfortunately for me, that's not my strongest suit, is the sort of like branding myself and sort of advertising myself. Um, I do love to create, and I do love to talk to people and to love to interact with people as well. Um, but I'm also raising some children and doing other things, and I find myself like kind of dizzy with like you said, there's so many options out there, which is amazing, and I love the fact that we have these tools. And like I said, I've been so amazed uh, digitally. Actually, I was able to support myself for about 1 year uh, as a digital NFT artist, myself and my family, and I had never done that before, because when I was showing with galleries, I was still working as a graphic designer, and that's how I made most of my money, and then I would sell paintings occasionally, and it was more of a thing that I did as an outlet, because I have to make art, and I love to go to gallery shows and stuff, and so that I had never been a full time artist until just very recently, um, and so that was a pretty amazing feeling, even though I had to kind of come back off of that a little bit, since sales have slowed down or whatever. But it was pretty amazing to be able to support myself as an artist, just creating, uh, and having to advertise yourself. It's a lot of work, but it's pretty amazing. I love the fact that we have these options out here now.
And let's make this about you a little bit deeper, if you don't mind, bro, because I feel like there's a lot that can be discovered, right, by just having this conversation with another creative. And for you, for instance, you said that you hadn't been a full-time artist for such a long time, just till recently. And so I know that comes with a lot, and I know it can be overwhelming sometimes, especially like, in your sense, you have kids, like you have a, so that really raises the stakes. So the your risk tolerance is not as the same as somebody who doesn't have these things that they're responsible for, and so for you, it's like, maybe like what has been, or what do you think is like the next step, to kind of get towards your goal? And if so, like, what is your goal in general, right? With what you're doing right now, like, what are you trying to do now?
Well, I mean, for me, the goal is, it's more of that. Um, Not necessarily, there's not into like financial goals and those kind of things. It's more of a, like, I want my art to touch people in a way that that uh that leaves a mark on them. Basically, the way that I work, it sort of unlocks memories in me sometimes that I've had like completely blocked out or forgotten about, and I hope that my art can help other people connect with that sort of thing, like connect with something that happened to them long ago, or a feeling that they, it's like, oh wow, this sort of like a deep connection. And I hope to help people remember who they really are, in some ways, because that's one of the beautiful things about art that's happened for me, is that it helps. Like I've started art as a child. I was very quiet and very to myself and couldn't express verbally very well. And I started doing art as a way of therapy in some ways. And my art was very dark, because a lot of teenagers have really dark sort of art. Um, and the art changed over the years a lot, but yeah, I really, it's almost like I want to help other people through my art, in a way, just by them seeing it, and just, and not everyone will connect with every piece of my art, and that's fine. But hopefully there is that sort of deeper connection with some people.
That's awesome, bro. And yeah, I can tell, man. I'm looking at your stuff right now, like the stuff that you exchange, and best way that I can kind of describe your work, at least just from me, just seeing it right now, kind of taking it all in, is it's powerful stuff, man. It's you can tell it's very intuitive. Your color choice, again, I don't know if you have like a set palette on your tablet that you're like, okay, this is what I'm sticking to, but you tend to have certain colors that continue to repeat, and they're powerful colors. They're not subtle colors, most of the time you get it's quite difficult to combine that many powerful colors because it's very in your face, it's very like boom, it's kind of hard to not really take notice. And so that's that's not easy, man. So the fact that you're able to do it in a way that you calm your pieces in certain areas that kind of like make the whole composition kind of relax a bit, because it can be a lot, right? Having
Right.
all neon reds and neon pinks, like turquoise, just like attacking each other. But you have this sense of balance, and you do use a lot of black as well for your negative space, which to me, it makes it even pop out even more. But there's a lot of figurative stuff. There's a lot of like movement that I can see is humanist, right? I see faces in certain areas. I see like hands in certain areas. I know some might be more like thought out, like yeah, this I'm actually creating like a human figure here. But other times I can tell it's kind of like, I don't want to say by accident, but more like just intuitive. Um, so yeah, that's like the way I represent. I can see your artwork, and I think seeing this physically in a space would be very powerful, man. Because like I said, it's very powerful stuff. It's very like strong work, and so I would love to see like a Ben Harley showcase, man. Like maybe even just like 4 or 5 pieces in the room, but I feel like that would be an experience.
Yeah, and that's actually what's interesting, is my color palette has changed dramatically since going digital, but also because I found psychedelics very late in life compared to a lot of people. I was very earth tones and more muted when I worked physically, and then when I part of the journey into the woods started with mushrooms, and releasing some stuff from my past through that process. Um, and then now it's so hard for me to do things without crazy psychedelic colors, because I'll start off, I'm just going to have a limited palette of 3 colors. And it's like, whoops, it's a rainbow again. So the vibrancy of the colors really has come much later. And also because the digital screen allows for that vibrant sort of like, light, shooting at you rather than being reflected. But, um, but yeah, there has been a dramatic change in the way that I use color from my physical paintings. Um, uh,
You know, just by looking at this workbook, what I would love to see, and if you have the time, just experiment with this, right? But take one of your abstract pieces, um, and find pockets where you can kind of create a sense of like a 3D depth. Maybe with just a highlight and shadow somewhere, not the whole thing, but maybe in just some areas, because I feel like that would change the perspective drastically, and it'll create like a more dimensional
okay.
viewpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, no, you try, because there's some areas where I'm like, yo, if that right there was like maybe even just a sphere type thing, right? We created like some type of effect, like a gloss effect, right? That show that there was very like a bright light hitting that specific area.
Hmm.
Just experiment with, bro. I feel like it'll do something with your work that'll be very interesting.
Okay, yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah, I always do. It's funny. I always when I start to see images, light sources do. That's something I used to draw very realistically. A lot of drawing from life. I taught painting and drawing from life for years to students. So I do often do small little highlights and things. But yeah, I can see how that would, because some of my images are more color field and somewhat flat, if you want to call it, or very very upfront. Uh, and I think it would be cool to make more dimensionality in some of these works. Definitely.
Yeah, because I wouldn't exactly say your work's flat. I would say okay, I can definitely see the depth of field in between layers. So it's not just a complete flat work. So that's what I'm saying. Like, damn, like what would happen if you were to just take this piece that's not completely flat and maybe just, mess with the viewer a little bit and kind of have these pockets of like 3D-ness almost, I feel like it was just really just like fuck with people in a good way. Um, and so yeah, I've never seen that done before. At least not like this, with your type of palette structure and the overall movements of your work. With you can tell you've been doing this for quite some time, man. So yeah, it's amazing, bro. Honestly.
I appreciate it, man. Um, it's been a fun ride. Really, like I said, I get to create so, and I look back. I've been in the space about 2 years, and I look back at the first things that I minted, or even the first things that I not didn't mint, but like even just posted. And it's amazing to watch how fast you can kind of like see a transition and a change and to the better. Because you get to put so much work out there so rapidly and get feedback on it, like we're having a feedback right now, and you give me ideas to like, hey, try this out. So I love, that's one of the things I love about this space, is like how rapidly everyone is changing. And I have so many friends that I've watched their transition or their sort of growth over just a year or two, and everything is so super fast, with so many people communicating so constantly. It just really is that weird, information age where everything gets sped up, because we don't all have to live in Paris to hang out at a coffee shop to talk about our art. We can just talk about it, you know, from our phones.
That's 100% true. It's a lot of like you said, it's a lot of feedback that we get as artists right away, and it's just a beautiful space, man. It's hectic, and I also love it for that. It's fast. People are doing all kinds of stuff, and it's incredible, bro. I feel like the biggest obstacle for any artist who is in the space right now is just staying in the space. I've seen a lot of artists burn out or
Hmm.
feel like fuck, maybe they're not getting the type of sales that they want, and so they kind of like start to slow down a bit. And I'm telling every artist, man, if you're in here right now listening to this, pace yourself. Like I cannot stress that enough. Pace yourself in a way that allows you to do this forever, and not just in a digital sense, but as a whole. If creating art or creating anything in general is your passion, find a way to apply it into your lifestyle that does not take away your love for it, because it can be very easily flipped, right? And when you're focusing on the financials, you're focusing on like what people think about it. Like, yes, I know, trust me, I understand. I know exactly what that feels like to be like, yo, I just want people to really, see the work the way I see and appreciate it, and like I just want to make ends meet by creating my art, right? I understand that, but it takes a process to get there. And if you truly love doing what you do, you just gotta stick to it and pace yourself, because I hate to see people burn out, man. Like it sucks seeing that, because you give it all you got, and then you're just like stressing yourself so far that it starts to harm you. You're thinking you're progressing and doing all these type of things because you're grinding it out, but at the same time, are you really? Maybe it's better to just take a step back, and take a couple of days off and then come back stronger the next week. Meditate, take some psychedelics. I don't know what works for every single person, but you just gotta find that about yourself, learn that about yourself. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
For you, Ben, like you said, you started psychedelics a bit later. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it was a huge release. It was amazing. Like, um, so I'm a DIY kind of guy, so I had to read a bunch of books and grow my own stuff, um, and then take it fresh and in a heroic dose with lemon juice, which was nasty. Oh my god! But apparently, the vitamin C helps potentiate or keep the psilocybin from breaking down as quickly in your body, so it's more potent or whatever. But did it with my longtime girlfriend at the time. We both did a heroic dose with no sitters, and so we were both having this intense, like it felt like about 10 to 20 years of relationship therapy all at once. There was so much snot and tears coming out of our heads. I actually feel like my brain was becoming unclogged with mucus, and it was so it's a crazy physical, as well as like sort of like mental and spiritual, all these kind of things. But the belly laughter that came out as a release was like loud and it was like I hadn't laughed like that since I was a child. I was like this. Oh my god! I've been holding this like my belly tight without knowing it for so long. These kind of things. So like it was this gigantic release and this like, this knowledge that everything will be okay. Everything is as it should be. It was this, the fear of death kind of leaves you. You stop worrying about every little thing and you kind of see a bigger picture. And it was a beautiful experience. And I remember saying to her, somebody I was like, hey, we can go wherever we want. We can do whatever we want. We can be whatever we want. And it was so it was a really beautiful thing, um, and yeah, it was intense. It was very intense. But we did that. We did a full moon ritual every month for about 6 months after that, and got we've now we don't as much because of the children, of course, but um, it was a beautiful thing, and I was and I think almost everybody that does mushrooms becomes an evangelist, and you start trying to tell all your friends, oh my god, you've got to do this. Hey mom, you guys are emotionally stunted, you need this. And like so I really tried to get my mom and
You
my stepdad.
do. That's amazing. And you know what actually works better? Because I'm like you, man. Once I find something, I just want other people to experience it, right? And
Yeah,
then try it. And I noticed the you should as opposed to like, yo, this is what worked for me, completely changes the tone, right? And so if you're trying to get somebody to try something, instead of being like, yeah, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that, you should just say, hey man, like I don't know if it's gonna work for you, but like, dude, this is what this did for me, and
yeah,
that starts like this curiosity to like, huh, maybe I should do it, and then it becomes their idea to be like, you know what? Well, tell me a little bit more about this. Like what exactly did it do for you? And then it comes to and it makes it their own decision. Their
right.
own spark of like, oh, I should try that.
Yeah, my mom really wanted to, and then my stepdad was like, no. I had her. She was there. She was almost there.
Damn,
Um, but no, yeah, but that wore off. That was one of those things that like I stopped trying to convince people to do anything basically, just because you can't convince somebody. Like you said, it's good to you can tell somebody your experiences, and then they might decide to try it. But that whole thing where everybody's got different perspectives, and you can't convince anybody of something that they don't already have sort of an innate curiosity about. So I no longer I don't get into arguments about politics or religion or anything because you know your truth is your truth, and I respect that. And I can't live your life and know what you've lived and expect to it's like from what I've lived, here's what I know, and that's going to be different for every person. So I don't do a lot of heated arguments with people.
exactly, and you don't have to. Honestly, the biggest form to kind of have other people try and change things, it's just by showing your world, man.
Hmm.
Showing how you're doing stuff you're doing, how you're living, how you're feeling, right? And just being honest about it. and that's how other people start to adapt certain things that you value, certain things that you do. They're like, well, if that's working for him, like maybe it'll work for me too, right? And I've
Right.
learned the hard way that that's the way you kind of lead, and kind of just have other people try to do stuff differently that maybe they might not have thought of before. And yeah, it's difficult, man, but I feel like by doing that and just being really true with yourself and just having this lens open for the world, for the world to see about you, which art is a great outlet for that, right? I mean, you show a lot of emotion through it. You show how you see certain things, how you see color, composition, like what you actually want to say. And so yeah, man, it goes on and on, bro. But I can't believe we're already at the 1 hour mark. I told you this was gonna be very chill, organic, bro. You fucking did amazing, man. I don't know why you were nervous, bro. You're natural.
Yeah, I'm a little sweaty, but that's all right.
It's because of the excitement, yeah.
That's right.
So this is a moment. If anybody in the audience has a question or a statement, go ahead and raise your hand right now before we close it out. But Ben, man, thank you for taking the time, bro, to hopping onto the creative mind, chopping it up with me. It was great to finally get this like one on one with you. I got to learn a lot about you, and you're a great dude, man. I could just tell by your tone, by your mindset, by your art. You're definitely a person I would chill with and just do some psychedelics with, man.
Yeah,
That'd be
dude. Yeah, I appreciate it. I've been in many spaces with you, like just listening. I've been in some of your earliest spaces with the Soul City Radio crew. I was there, and I really respect your vibe, and I like what you're doing, and yeah, I really appreciate it, man.
yes, sir. Yeah, I gotta chop it up with Soul City because it's been a minute. Um, but yeah, I love what they're doing as well. I love what everybody's doing in this space. Is the fact that you're in this space at all, whether you're an artist, whether you have a project, whether you're in a project, like shout out to everybody who's in the space at all because it's so experimental. It's so nobody really knows what's happening, but everybody's just here trying to make it a better space for everybody. So I really want to give a shout out to everybody who's trying just here at all, man, because it's a crazy time, and I feel like this is a crazy space, and we're all a little crazy, and I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so before we close it out, Ben, I always like to leave it at this last question, and this is kind of in the moment, just go with whatever pops in your mind. And so if you can go back in time, man, and you had like 10 minutes with young Ben, what would you tell him?
You know, in some ways, I think everything works out for the best. So I would probably just say, hey, man, it's all going to be okay. No matter what you go through, it's all good because I wouldn't want to change things or like give knowledge to myself, from the future, really, because everything kind of works out like it's going to work out, and I would just kind of reassure him of that. Um, like you're going to go through some stuff. It's going to be bad. It's going to be good. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to hate it, but it's all going to work out, man. It's all going to work out.
I absolutely love that. Damn. And before we close this out, Ben, what can people look forward to in regards to your art? Like, what are you creating? Are you dropping anything anytime soon?
Well, I haven't been dropping anything recently. Like the big move has kind of slowed me down a little bit, but I did start a daily painting process um, right before I moved, and I got about 21 days into it, and then like the move got me. But I am currently in a couple of different other people's projects. My friend Transitory Mass just dropped out a second ago, but he's got a thing called Dissonance, which is a comic book, and all the panels are done by different artists. And I got a few panels in there and a cover, and then I got another project with Clint, the Three Tones One Brush project. So I did a little limited palette, limited brush use, one of one in that mint. Um, but I have a lot of stuff. I actually have a few physical works that I'm eventually going to release, but I have not done that yet as NFTs. Um, but I'm always painting. I'm always creating. Um, and I have some work available as well. um,
That's what's up, man. Definitely keep us ODK in the loop. when you're about to drop anything new, man. We love you over here, Brent Ben, and it's been a pleasure, bro. I really love to see what the next couple of months, turn out for you in terms of your artwork, your physical stuff. So much love, man. Thank you for taking the time, honestly.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much for inviting me. I love it.
Absolutely. And for everybody listening, we do this every Friday, The Creative Mind. We host and talk to a new creative every week. And we've been doing it nonstop for like 15 weeks or so. And we're not going to stop. If anything, it's only going to get better and better. So make sure to, hit that notification bell and stay in the know. And yeah, much love to everybody. Much love to you, Ben. And we'll catch you guys next week.